Welcome back to the Christian Village Church in Forked River, New Jersey, and we're doing the wrap-up on the book of Genesis. Not the book of Genesis, mainly the garden. And we looked last time we did this into the story of the Garden of Eden, and we came up with the understanding that we are not talking about fruit or trees. We're talking about something much more important than that. Something very, very beautiful. We believe that the fruit that Eve ate in the garden is symbolic. It's a spiritual thing. We believe Eve is symbolic and is a spiritual thing. My personal feeling is there is no human beings named Adam and Eve. Never was any human beings named Adam and Eve. Which makes it very important then what do they represent? Say. When you look at all of these things, and of course when you look at the words Adam and Eve, and you look at the Garden of Eden and all of these things, not to understand what they represent mystically and spiritually deprives you of a deep, deep truth that's very, very important to your life. It's the same way as when we talk of Jonah and the fish. Was there such a person as Jonah? Was there such a person that was swallowed by the whale? Obviously not. I mean, absolutely not. It is lunacy that grown, intelligent people have allowed other people to teach them such stuff. And in here you have the most bizarre story of all, which is the foundation of your religion. That this lady ate a fruit served by a snake. The snake walked up and said, "Here, have it." Now what would you do? If a snake come up and said, "Here, you want to try?" What would you? I'd run, you know, it's ridiculous. And as a result of eating the fruit that the snake brought, and she gave it to her husband, and then what happened? They got naked. And this is our story, some beloved story. Well, you know, shame on our culture that we sat and we did not understand Eastern allegorical mythology deep enough to know that didn't really happen. Because you'll find most people that go to church believe it really did. And I mean, if you do that, you might as well believe in Santa Claus, and I've got some oceanfront property in Arizona that I want to sell you, you know, so. But Jonah in the whale is a form of this. Jesus used it allegorically. He said, as Jonah was 3 days and 3 nights in the whale, so shall the Son of Man be 3 days and 3 nights in the earth, and so forth and so on. But this is all symbolism. It's all spiritual. It's all mysticism. So you've got to insist on the spiritual significance, and you've got to go beyond thinking of a garden with fruit and apples and trees. You've got to go beyond thinking of two people walking around in that, and you've got to start understanding things. What about the heavenly manna? Was there manna? I mean, you know, that's the story that as the children of Israel crossed the desert, bread fell out of the sky. I mean, you know. But what do we see? Let's take a look at the Bible and see if we can start to understand these things on the basis of what the Bible says. See? Take a look at page 870. Let's talk about heavenly manna. Okay. And of course, if there was any Italian people crossing the desert at that time, I guess it would be manna cotti. You know, I mean. But whatever, since they were Jewish, I guess it was whatever. No bread fell out of the sky. I mean, can you imagine loaves of bread falling down out of the sky? Nothing like that occurred. But let's take a look. Page 870 in the Bible, John chapter 6, and let's take a look at it, and let's see. You know, we're not saying not to disbelieve the Bible, just the opposite. Really believe it, get to understand it, understand how it was written, that it's a spiritual book. And what does it say in John chapter 6, verse 32? I say unto you, Moses gave you not that bread from heaven. There was no bread that fell out. But my Father gives you the true bread from heaven, for the bread of God is he which comes down from heaven and gives life unto the world. So then here's a statement by Jesus Christ saying that there was no such thing as bread falling out of the sky. Moses gave you not that bread from heaven, yet you will get people, I would say everybody that walks into a Christian church will insist that there was manna from heaven, even though Jesus Christ said no. This is the same Jesus Christ who they say is coming back to rule and reign, who said, my kingdom is not of this world, and the same Jesus Christ who said the kingdom comes not with observation, it's within you, the same one that they totally disregard what he said, and they make up their own rules and regulations, and in the same way in understanding symbolism. Look at, you're in John 6, verse 32. Go a few more verses in the next page, and look what Jesus talks. You're talking about symbolism. Let's talk about symbolism. Really interesting. You talk about fruit, eating fruit. Here, look at this one. This is what Jesus said. Now, how would you like to have been sitting listening to this preacher? You talk about the guy in Waco. Look at this one. He that eats my flesh and drinks my blood dwells in me and I in him. Now, I wonder if Jesus had just come out of a delicatessen and he had some glass of tomato juice, and he's got a little, around, and he's talking, he who drinks my blood, and you know what happened? Everybody ran. Everybody ran away, see? And look, when he said, you got to drink my blood and eat my flesh, look what they said in verse 60. Many of his disciples, they said, this is a hard, who can listen to this? Who can hear this? No, I can't listen to this guy. This guy's whacked out. He wants everybody to go up and take a bite out of him. Look at, you got to, what do you take a leg? You take an arm? Because they didn't these people didn't understand and thought he really was talking about them eating his flesh and drinking his blood. And look what Jesus said in verse 61. Does this offend you? It sure offends you because you don't understand it. Yes, right? And so here then, we understand that we're talking in spiritual terms. We're not talking about eating flesh and drinking blood. We're not talking about eating fruit and trees and all of these things. The message of manna in the desert is the same thing. It's God's healing in your mind. The heavenly manna that comes down is that which comes down from the higher realms of consciousness to feed you wisdom and understanding. Bread or manna in the Bible means wisdom and understanding, and it comes down from the higher mind through meditation. Meditation brings the mind. As you cross the deserts of meditation, the heavenly manna comes down, the heavenly wisdom, the understanding comes down. See? But in the garden, see, what you've got to really understand, see, that trees and fruit and all this kind of business have nothing whatsoever to do with reality. They're talking as symbols of that which is contained within our own consciousness. Did Adam and Eve physically exist? Okay. Obviously not. In the first place, how would you find two English people? Two people who have names that are ordained in London, living in this place in the middle of, where would it be, Timbuktu or someplace? How could you find, otherwise, it would have to be, what was the guy, the explorer, Dr. Livingston, I presume? What are you doing here, Adam? Eve, old Pip, what are you doing here in the middle of it? This is written by English people. It got into somewhere, the King's English, and they said, these are the names of the people that were living here. What does it mean? Eve means life-giving spirit. That's what the name means. It talks about that which is the mind. Adam means the earth, the center, the physical. So there's a name given to represent that part of you that is the physical. There's a name given to represent that part of you that is the mind. And you then make a story out of it. And it's called allegory. Allegory. And the whole Bible is allegory. It has nothing to do with real life people. Absolutely nothing whatsoever to do with real life people. Symbols are used so that all language... Look, let me try to explain to you. How can you paint a picture of remorse? When you talk about, how could you paint? I want you to paint a picture of, what remorse means? I mean, it's, depressing. How do you, paint a picture of remorse, anxiety. So what do? You show a picture of a person being tormented in flames, in a deep pit somewhere, and it's dark. And so then you're actually painting, allegorically, symbolically, a painting that can convey the torment that affects those of us in the mind. That's what that says. You see all this Dante and all this. Has nothing to do, was never meant to mean. But see, religion and people in this culture don't understand how that's done, so they think that there was a pit. I saw this complete nincompoop on his Trinity broadcasting when I said that someplace where they were drilling for oil, they heard people screaming in a hole. Did you see the screwballs? So, you know, of course he never followed up on it because how could this person say such a thing? That they heard people screaming, "Hey, stop that drilling up there, you know, what the heck is it?" That's right, they thought he hit Australia. I mean, how are you going to deal with people? And these are people are giving them 10% of their income, and they got churches and religions and all this stuff, and actually believe there are people living in the earth underneath there screaming and being tormented. You draw a picture of people in flames and in caves and in pits and all of that stuff, and you're conveying the context of remorse of the mind. See? And that's how you do it. Suffering, the inability to escape it. What do I do? And so you show this picture. And that's the way you convey the contents of the mind by drawing a picture like that. How do you paint peace? Beautiful, perfect peace. Well, you have a little angel with puffy wings floating around in a cloud, right? And he floats around, and he has a harp, because he's the Andreas Vollenweider of the cosmic sect, you know, plunk, plunk, plunk. But that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. You send greeting cards, and you pick out the little angel on the puffy cloud. Why? Because it's very gentle, it's very soothing, it's very peaceful, and that's the way you convey peace. So it's just drawing pictures. But there are people who believe there are angels on clouds with harps, and there are people in pits, and there's nitwits, there's people drilling oil and hitting people in the head in the middle of the earth, and all of this kind of stuff going on. See, but now you're beginning to learn. You don't take this stuff literally. It never occurred. It never happened. It's given as a story to convey to you an idea. But what's being conveyed are the experiences, the truths of the experiences of the mind. See? And unfortunately, what has happened? Your religious teachers, by teaching you that these two people ran around, a snake served her an apple, and they got naked, and they got kicked out because they didn't have enough leaves and all of this kind of stuff. And then a whale came along and swallowed a guy, threw up, and a preacher came out, and the lady cut this guy's hair, and the house fell down, and all of this kind of stuff. And you reduced God to an imbecilic type of myth that no right person in the world could ever sit there and listen to it. But that's what they do every day. They take fairy tales, which are written. You know, the Bible could have been written by Uncle Remus. You remember Uncle Remus? These are Uncle Remus tales. That's exactly what they are. And they are stories that are bizarre and screwy to convey a meaning. Did you remember that, the Song of the South? That's what Uncle Remus, remember Uncle Remus? And he used to tell you, "Yeah, children, come up here, I'll tell you the story of how the lion chased his tail and turned into something and butter or whatever." Well, they should remember Uncle Remus. They do remember Uncle Remus because I saw them shaking their heads, yes. Somebody of you out there in television write me and you remember Uncle Remus. Uncle Remus is liable to write me. How do you know that? But see, the point that I'm trying to make is we have never gotten beyond taking things which are basically just symbolic stories literally, and we missed it, okay? So let's take a look at Adam and Eve. Adam means the earth, the physical, the body. Eve means the soul or the mind. So now if we'll just say that and say there was never anybody named Adam in this crazy garden, there was never anybody named Eve. What's being talked about is your spirit and your mind, your thought process, and your physical being. So we'll call your physical part of you that does all the stuff Adam, and we'll call the mental part of you that does the thinking Eve. Then now we can get to the story. And we can start to understand, you know, really what it's talking about, okay? Now, in the first place, when you deal with the book of Genesis, and if you're really going to look at it objectively, you're going to find out that there are two stories about the creation, two separate and distinct stories. Verses Genesis 1 and 5 is one, and Genesis 2, 3, and 4 is another one. Because you've heard of Adam and Eve. They had Cain and Abel. They got in trouble with the apple. They got kicked out, and all of this kind of stuff they got thrown. And that's one part of it. There's another part of it which is very, very interesting. Because now let's take here the Adam, the physical part, the Eve, the mind or the thought process, and let's bring them into kind of a oneness and become you, because all of us have Eve and all of us have Adam. We have the physical part, we have the mental part. And that's very interesting because take a look on page 4 in your little Bible there, And if you look at Genesis, in Genesis chapter 5, and verse 2. Okay, well, it says this is, let's look at verse 1. This is the book of the generations of Adam. In the day that God created man, in the likeness of God made he him. Now watch something very carefully here. Male and female created he them, and blessed them, and called their name Adam. And if you read on, there was no Eve at all. Their name was Adam, and they were male and female. Okay, and of course, you know, we all know about taking the rib out of Adam, and I think we've gotten along. We realize that as you take an electron out of an atom, you make the energy multiply, and here the story of taking a rib out of Adam is simply the way to say that all life came as a result of splitting the atom. Okay? And here then we start to see now he called them Adam, and they're male and female. So now here's you named Adam, or Atom, the nucleus, the center, and you have Adam, which is the earth, and you have Eve, which is the mind, the physical and the mind. Let's take a look at something interesting on page 942, 1 Corinthians chapter 15. 1 Corinthians chapter 15, verse 45. I want to remind you that next week we're doing Solomon and 666, which I think will be something that you've never heard before, and in fact, I know you've never heard it before, but I think something you'll find very interesting. And those of you who will be around Sunday morning, the Bhagavad-Gita, which is always a treasure, and the eternal secret revealed. 1 Corinthians chapter 15 and verse 45. And so it is written, the first man, Adam, was made a living soul, but the last Adam was made a quickening spirit. Okay? See, the first, so now look verse 46. Howbeit it was not first which is spiritual, but that which is natural, and after that which is spiritual. So then, who's going to come first? That which is physical, that which is Adam, is going to come first before that which is Eve. Okay. Adam comes first in this parable, this allegory about the Garden of Eden. Then comes the spiritual part, then comes the soul part, then comes the mind part, then comes the feminine part, which is the spiritual part of God. God has two aspects, the physical male part and the spiritual or the soul part. The spirit part of God is feminine, the woman part. So now the Bible, as we know, it says that Eve ate a certain fruit and then persuaded Adam to do the same thing, and then Adam ate the fruit, and that caused the fall. Now, open your spiritual eyes, if you will, to the great truth, see. And that is this. The body, Adam, the physical part, cannot experience anything unless it first occurs in the mind, Eve. That which happens to you must first come from Eve, or the mind as a thought, before it can be experienced in the physical, or Adam as a deed. And that's why Eve will eat the fruit before Adam, because a thought will always come into the mind before the act is carried out. And the mind cannot contain something, Eve, without having an effect on the body, Adam. See? So we're talking about one thing. And so look what we've got here, the story of Adam and Eve. Now we've reduced this down to something, or we've magnified it into something that's really psychological in nature and a great truth. It has nothing to do with two people eating fruit that's served by a snake. It has to do with the operations of our mind. The spiritual aspect of our mind, the thinking process, will first be infected by whatever it is that we're going to do, and then it'll be acted out in the physical realm. Eve first. So it's not by chance, then, that this fatal fruit was first eaten by Eve, because it is the soul that has the effect on the body. The soul has the effect. It is the actions of the body which are the manifestations. You do what you think. You do. You have. Eve always is active inside of you, and when Eve decides to eat the fruit, then Adam will act it out. In other words, when you're thinking about something, Eve is talking to the snake. When you decide to do it, Eve eats the fruit and then gives the fruit to Adam. When you've decided to do it, you then act it out, and the deed is done by Adam. The deed is thought by the Eve part of you. The deed is done by the Adam part of you. So there's no two people. See? But you know, how long do we have to go? How long did we have to go in our lives to be able to get mature enough to look at this? Because up until this time, most of us never even questioned this lunacy about these two English people in the middle of the Timbuktu eating fruit that the snake gave them. Look, if Eve, which is your mind, consumes the fruit of love and joy and peace, she will bring harmony to Adam, to the physical part. If you consume the fruit of the higher mind, and there is peace, and there is understanding, and there is enlightenment, then there can be harmony within the physical body. If the mind is receiving that fruit from the higher realms, there is going to be love, and there is going to be peace. If the mind is receiving it from the snake or from the lower realms, then all hell's going to break loose. And this is what happened in this story. See? Because we ate the forbidden fruit. And the forbidden fruit is the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. See? That's on the left side. In other words, if you want to see where that is, I can show that to you. If you take the picture of a human being, there's one right there. Okay. Here's tie. Okay. I heard it. What is it? Shoulders. Guy, yeah, he's a football player. Anyhow, over here, now I'm looking at the difference. He's looking out to you. So I'm going to make this the left side because you're looking here, okay? There grows the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. Some of the stuff is good, some of the stuff isn't good. Sometimes you say, geez, I thought it was a good idea. See? It sounded like a good idea, but it was all screwed up. Over here on the right side is where the tree of life grows. This is here, the Garden of Eden. Please try to understand that. The Garden of Eden is not located on any place on the earth other than in your head. And it is on the right side. Huh? How do I know it's on the right side? Whenever you look north, east is always on the right side. I know that. And I don't even know that. You probably know that. I mean, it doesn't take you to become a wizard to know that when you look north. So then how do we know? Come with me. Open the Bible to the first page. I wasn't even going to do this, but let's open the Bible to the first page. And I'll go to the second or the third page or wherever the heck it was. And let's take a look at the this garden, okay? And look at chapter 2 of Genesis. Now, what did I say? I said that the garden is on the right side, didn't I? And I said that I know that because when you look north, east is always on the right side, right? Look at Genesis chapter 2, verse 8. And where is the Garden of Eden? And the Lord God planted a garden eastward in Eden. Very important. In other words, the garden was planted on the right side. On the right side. That's where you sit at the right hand of the Father. Okay? That's why Jesus said, cast your net to the right side. That's why the door to the holy place in the construction of the temple is put on the right side. Does anybody ever stop to say, why the heck did they do that? Why not put it on the left side? See? Why do you have to be filled with righteousness? Why not leftiousness? I mean, he's a very leftist person. Well, you can't be a leftist person. You got to be a righteous person. Why? Because it's on the whole Bible is talking about the right side. Everything comes in. When the three wise men came, where'd they come? From the east, from the right side. When the Christ is born within you, the wisdom comes from the right side. The star shone down from where? In the east, from the right side. It's enlightenment from the right side. It means that the Garden of Eden, the tree of life, is an allegorical reference to something that is inside of your head in the right hemisphere of your brain, and a great psychiatrist by the name of Carl Jung says, yes it is, I found it. Now I am not in his class to be able to talk about the mind, so I bow to him, and he says yes it is. He's got the credentials to say yes it is. He said there is something in the superconsciousness of man on the right side that you call God. It has nothing to do with human things. Right? So, this to me is good. Now that's the great secret. Did you hear what do you look at all the empty chairs here? So people are going, and a bunch of churches all over the place who still believe that a snake walked up on its hind legs. That's what I was taught as a kid. The snake walks on its hind legs and says, hey, take a look at this fruit here. How do you like this? Or I've got some asparagus or Brussels sprouts. Oh, I'll take the tree. Yeah, what does the God say? Give me a break with this God. All right, here's what he said. You got in this forest, you got 300 billion trees. Okay? And you got to tell these people, look, you can eat anything you want, but I'm going to show you one tree. And they got to go for about 6.5 years to find a tree, and they finally get, see this tree here? Don't eat anything from there, or you'll get smart. Now, what's the first thing you're going to do? No matter where you go for the rest of your life, you're going to think of one tree, and that's the tree. You know. So, I mean, basically, the psychology of it is that this here is something that is really a part of the human mind. It's part of something deep within us, and we understand that now. So, but what the point I'm trying to make is you're one of the very few that understands the Garden of Eden is the right hemisphere of your brain. And it's off limits to everything. That's why they put angels with flaming swords there so nothing can block, because you can't take any thought into the garden. Can't take any of yourself into the garden. The angels with the flaming swords that protect that entrance say no thoughts can enter, nothing human can enter into the garden. No burdens, none of your fears, none of your ideas, none of your traditional concepts can enter into the gardens. Off limits. That's why when you take no thought, when you go into your meditation and you start to envelop yourself, now, sometimes you might get 2 minutes, maybe you get 30 seconds, when there's absolutely no thought. When there is no thought, the door to the holy place opens, and you enter into the garden. And as soon as you start thinking, the door closes. Because nothing that is of you can enter into the garden. Well, that's great. That's the meaning. Look, what happens? The Jesus who dwells within you in the solar plexus. When you sacrifice him via the meditation, the 5 wounds, the hands, feet, and side, the taking of the 5 senses, and you sacrifice that, when you do that, and that the 5 senses of the Jesus dies, he becomes the Christ. As soon as you do that, all thought disappears, and the opening comes. The veil. Look, let me show you. Go with me, okay? Go to page 862. Book of Luke. Look what happens when Jesus dies on the cross. When Jesus is crucified, and remember this is symbolically that which takes place inside of you. There is no God in any planet that exists on any planet in the universe who cannot forgive you unless he tortures people to death. That is hogwash. That is blasphemy. This is allegorical, and that's why Thomas the apostle wrote about John the disciple and said that when Jesus was on the cross, John met him in a cave and they both laughed about it. And Jesus said to John, John, what they say I suffered, I didn't suffer. Go to the bookstore, go to Dalton's, go to Waldman's and get the book. Written by, oh, well, we can't get it because the church doesn't allow. Certainly they wouldn't allow that book into the Bible. And so John walked down, and when he walked out of the cave, he said, I walked down and I saw all the people crying, and I started laughing because I realized that God did all of this symbolically to save mankind. Otherwise, you have a fiendish God who couldn't figure out any way to save or forgive you unless he tortured this man to death. And not only tortured this man to death, but used this poor Judas as a fakakta to do all of this stuff and said, here, we'll put it in his mind to go ahead and sell out Jesus. And then, he gets so freaked out he kills himself. Is this a nice thing to do to this guy? And then the soldiers are nailing him, and they're the good guys. See, because if they don't do this, if they don't do this, Jesus has to commit suicide because he's got to give his life, see? So what does he do? He's going to have to take pills or something. What is he going to do? It's a horrible thing. And no wonder we are so warped. No wonder our existence is so destructive in this earth, because this is what we think of God. It's what we think of spirit. It's ridiculous. But let's look what happens. When Jesus dies, look, John, where am I? Luke 23 and verse 45. And the sun was darkened. This is when Jesus dies on the cross. The sun was darkened, and the veil of the temple was rent in the midst. In other words, there was no longer a separation between you out here and the holy place. Now you can enter in because Jesus has died. Now you can enter in because the life within you has died, and it becomes the Christ within you. Okay? The temple is rent in the midst. But what does he say? What do you have to do? We have to figure how to bring this down. This separation. We've got to figure a way to eliminate that. When you are able to get past this wall here, then you no longer have to eat of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, which is on the left side. You can enter into the creative, beautiful right hemisphere of the brain and eat from the tree of life. Look what it says, and that's a promise. Page 1003, Revelation chapter 2. Revelation chapter 2, verse 7. He that hears, let him hear what the Spirit says to the church. To him that overcomes will I give to eat of the tree of life, which is in the midst of the paradise of God. Right there. The paradise of God is the right hemisphere of your brain where you can bring no thoughts. But when you are able to cause that wall to fall, the gate swings open, and you can enter into the Garden of Eden, and there you partake of the tree of life. And you do that by energizing brain cells in the right hemisphere of the brain. And you start to understand, you start to become enlightened. And you grow with this, and you grow with this, and through the Word of God's patience, you sit in meditation, and then the patience, you become stronger and stronger and stronger. And then you begin to overcome the hard, the difficult things of life. So the tree of life is in your mind. The Garden of Eden is in your mind. It's no place else. It can't be found anywhere. It's inside of people. I have heard of people who have actually gone out. Do you know there are people who have gone out on places looking for it? Explorers who have gone looking for the garden, because we take things all literally. And we do that. We teach kids, you know, we have a tendency to do that. We teach kids that Santa Claus is real. Because we just can't give up this kind of thing. But you know, and whenever you see this, children that are close to God and who have been to God very early know the difference. They know he's not. I mean, when you take a kid that's a little baby and you bring him into Santa Claus, the first thing to do is scream bloody murder. They'll scream bloody murder because they know this is wrong. They know this is bad. They know this is foreign to them. They know this stuff. But as a kid gets older and he begins to become a politician and he's going to con everybody out of all of the toys he can get, he thinks it's great. Hey, Santa. Hey, I want Santa. Certainly I'm going to believe in Santa because I want to get. See, the whole concept of the birth of Christ is turned into what? What can I get? Gimme, gimme, gimme. The whole concept is we're coming up on Easter. What is it? The resurrection of Jesus? No. Sex, prostitution, eggs, bunnies, Eastward, the queen of sex, and all of this stuff. This is the great holy day of the Christian church. If nothing else, it should make people say, my God, you know, let me walk away from it. So the secret is that the gate is open. The Garden of Eden is in the right hemisphere of your brain. See? Now, if we have the gate closed, and we're dwelling in the left side of the brain, we're dwelling in the carnal mind, and that's the carnal mind, the left side, okay? Take a look here at what it says on page 924. Page 924. The book of Romans chapter 8. If we don't bring that wall down and enter into the garden at the right hemisphere of the brain, we dwell in the carnal mind at the left hemisphere of the brain. And look what it says in Romans chapter 8 and verse 6. To be carnally minded is death. To be spiritually minded is life and peace. Oh, so in other words, if I can get into the spiritual realm of the right side, I'll be in life and peace. If I'm going to stay in the left side, in the carnal mind, I'm in death. Because what's it say? Because the carnal mind is enmity against God. It is not subject to the law of God, neither indeed can it be. So you're just totally on the outside. There's nothing you can do. You can't go to church and get anywhere. You can't sing songs. You can't confess anything. You can't do anything because people know they go to church. Look at the people that go to church. Look at the people that go to church. They're shooting cops in Waco. They're blowing up the buildings in New York. They're shooting doctors in Florida. And they're jumping in the choir lofts and having sex with the choir maids and all of this stuff all over the place. Or they're, having the altar boy goes in the back of the altar and here all hell. What's going on? Or they're on television and they're Benny Hinn and they're sticking their hands in people's pockets and they're making believe that they're healing people to get money. And this is God. All over the place. The television is loaded with them. Con artists, showmen with their just like carnival barkers. And what you know Barnum and Bailey said? You know what Barnum said? There's a sucker born every minute. And Christianity has gathered up all these suckers and they say, hey, come on and get healed. And not one of them nobody gets healed, and yet they take their money, their life savings, and give it to these con artists. Rip-offs. Rip-offs. Oh, and this guy Benny Hinn I'm not going to tell people that they're healed anymore. So you got caught by ABC, you dope. You're not going to tell them anymore. I'm not going to tell them anymore. Oh, I'm going to sell my Mercedes-Benz, but I'm going to keep my $750,000 house because I get death threats. But these are the people. Huh? And you got a demented guy out in Waco, Texas, waiting for God to tell him. Who told him all of this? And he's a Bible scholar. And he reads it literally, just like the rest of them do. And the guy shoots the doctor because he commits abortions in Florida. And you know what? They find a way to justify it. God told them, he got a message from God. Dangerous people. Dangerous, dangerous, dangerous people. And the only way that religion can be true is when each individual really allows the Christ to come to birth within them and to send out waves of peace and love and energy of light and healing. Otherwise, it's a fraud and it is a danger. And what you're seeing here is a throwback to the Dark Ages. This Christian religion was born in the blood of the Crusades, slicing people's throats who didn't agree with them. The Inquisition, the Spanish Inquisition, was nothing but torture set up by religious rabble against people. And they took their horses and they were going to Christianize the deserts, and they went into the deserts on their horses with their swords drawn. Only they ran into a bunch of Muslims and they had to turn tail and run the other way. Thank God. But of course they're just, But how can, we talk about the peace and the love and the animals and nature and the way God should be, and yet the millions and the millions and the millions flock to these types. And no matter how much they expose them on television, they're still throwing money out like crazy. Right? But seriously, what's the fall? What's the fall of Adam and Eve? It's ego, it's pride, it's desire, and basically the decision was not to stay here. And you know what? The decision is made every day. I'll show you. I mean, you got people that have been coming to this church for years. They know it's the right hemisphere of the brain. But I'll show you on Tuesday, or I'll show you on Thursday, when you think, here, they could come in here and energize themselves and eat of the tree of the... They won't come. See? They won't come because in the same way, they want to stay here. It's staying here. It's, whether it be TV or whatever, they don't want to go. But you have to understand, this wall must come down. You know what this wall is? Remember when Joshua went around the wall? He had to go 7 times. It's the 7th chakra. When you go past the 7th chakra, the wall comes down, and you take the city, the holy city, which is the Garden of Eden. But having to understand that we have to understand that the only way that we can get in there is when Jesus Christ says, you've got to take no thought. When you give up your mind, you give up, that is your garden that you've been trying to till the soil there, and you then find that all of the weeds and all of the rocks and all of the hard places, you enter into the fertile Garden of Eden where you take of the tree of life. So when you meditate with no thought, we start to energize our way into this garden. You disappear. Here, this is what's so frightening to people. They have this wall, okay? All you know, this is your whole life. Understand something. Your whole life is in this little room. See? And you don't want to go. And you know what they teach you? Christians will teach you. You'll open, if this door to the holy temple opens, they'll say, you're going to open your mind to devils. Because they don't know that the only thing in there is God. They don't know that. because they've convinced each other. So they keep this door closed, keep that door locked. We don't want to go in there. It reminded me of the guru who talked about, and I've told this story many times, of the little drop of rain that's falling down to the ocean. Oh, I don't want to go into the ocean. Oh, I'm going to die when I hit the ocean. And finally, the little drop of moisture hits the ocean. It's only a significant little drop you can put on the tip of your finger. And it hits the ocean, and it didn't die. It became the sea. It became the sea. And it carves out continents, and it lifts mighty ocean liners, and it rages, and it calms, and it's safe, and all of these beautiful things, because it fell into the hole and became one with the whole. And this is what you've got to be willing to do. You've got to give up all of religion, all of it. You got to turn, you come on your television, turn the fools off, and you go into yourself and move into that beautiful garden, which Jesus said, cast your net to the right side, and you shall find. You follow Jesus Christ. But follow Jesus Christ out of the Bible. Don't follow him from Benny Harn or whatever. Don't follow Jesus Christ out of the Bible. Read what he really said, not what they said he said, what he really said. What they say, they said, let me just give you two. Jesus is coming again to reign. But you know what Jesus said? Luke 17:20. The kingdom comes not with observation. You can't see it because the kingdom is within you. And you know what? You can tell them that and tell them that and tell them that. But they want to huddle with the mob. See? Oh, Jesus is going to reign for 1,000 years on the earth. And Jesus Christ, you know what he said? My kingdom is not of this world. Well, so what I'm asking you to do, I'm saying to you, listen to him. Oh, they say you can't practice the single eye. It's a cult. Jesus Christ says if your eye be single, your body will fill with light. Be a cult. And if you'll be a cult, you'll be a follower of Christ. Because Christ said, this is very occult. He said, unto you is given to know the secrets of the kingdom that are hidden. That's a cult. But to them out there, it's all parables, and they don't know it. And they said, oh, the second, you should ask Jesus to come into your heart. In John 16:23, Jesus says, at that time you shall ask me nothing. Why can't I ask him anything? He said, because if you'll open the door and enter the garden, you'll go right to the center of God. Jesus Christ is someone that you can follow anywhere because he never came here to show the world how great he was. He came here to show the world how great you are. So that's why you meditate. You just enter and you fall into the ocean of God's sea like that little drop, and you become the ocean. So we left our carnal mind. It's gone now. And even though it rears its head, we know that we sit in the Garden of Eden. And if you can't, and it's hard, and don't tell me this junk about, oh, I meditate at home, because I don't talk about it. It is hard. But when you discipline yourself to come, and you come here, we have 7:30 Thursdays, 8 o'clock, you come here, and you enter in the vibrations of this room for a lousy half hour, you are transported into this magic garden. And I'll tell you something. Those of you come this Tuesday night, and on television, you'll probably see this 10 years from now. I'll probably be in the magic garden somewhere. Jeez. Tuesday night, what? 2010, Tuesday night. Never mind. But if you come, I'm just talking to you folks that are here. You come on this Tuesday night, we're going to do something. It's almost like a concert in meditation. We're listening to it tonight. This man, there are two people in the music world today who really write out of the depths of spirit. One is Kitaro, and the other is Vangelis. And Vangelis has just written a new piece called The Conquest of Paradise. And we're just going to sit, turn the lights down, go into the Father, and let it roar. It's magnificent, and it will touch you emotionally, and it will touch you spiritually as you give your heart and your mind to Christ on Tuesday night. So I encourage you that are here to be with us Tuesday night. What have I got written here? What the heck? All is well. It says at the end of this, all is well, all is well. I was very dramatic when I wrote this. All is well. Yeah, the guys are blowing up the Trade Center, and the Waco wackos are out there, 6 flags over Waco, or wherever. All is well. But it was good. We had a good day. And we really had a good day because we shared... What the heck did we talk about this morning? Bungo. What was it? Revelation. Yeah, we did. We did Revelation. There's so much. You know, we've done so... Do you realize how many stories and how many different things? I can't even keep track of them. But, you know, we did that this morning. And next Sunday, though, the Bhagavad-Gita. And that's always an adventure, a beautiful adventure. Oh, probably the oldest document in the world, way back thousands of years. And then we look at it and say, my God, you know, it's today. And the name of the subject we're doing is The Eternal Secret Revealed out of the Bhagavad-Gita. And then next Sunday night, Solomon and 666. And those will be on tapes, I guess, you know, eventually down the road as we put them together. Good night, Mrs. Calabash. Remember Jimmy Durant?